Hey everyone, Jim Coventry from RotoWire here, take two, as we're breaking down the NFL Championship weekend games. Very excited for this weekend. We are going to have a couple of great games, hopefully, here, down to 3 games left in the season. As always, if you are on RotoWire YouTube, please smash the like and subscribe button. I would appreciate it greatly. Think that would be great. And if you are not following me on Twitter, at Jim Coventry NFL is the place to go for that. You definitely can give me a follow, and I already have a thread up for prop betting this weekend with rationale behind 4 picks. Like I always say, if you like them, it's great. If you don't agree, don't bet them. Very, very simple. So that said, we are going to break these games down. And, I'm going to put an Instagram feed on here real quick, I think, while we're at it. And when we go through these games this weekend, I like the fact that the line was interesting on the Cincinnati and the Kansas City game. When that game opened up, it initially opened up as the Chiefs is a 1-point favorite, and it quickly moved to Cincinnati being a 1-point favorite. The money line moved on this thing. I got the money line. I got that at a straight plus 100, so even money. And what ended up happening then was when I saw it later, it was like 130. So I like, and we'll talk about this game in a while. So I definitely like this game. And now with the money line being an advantage, now it's a little tougher to go. All right, let's break these things down. So let's start out 49ers at the Eagles. Game is at 3 Eastern on Sunday, and if you want to catch a great pregame show before that, Alan Soslowski and myself will be on Sirius XM Fantasy Channel 87. The 2 hours preceding kickoff, we will break that thing down, give you every piece of information and angle you may need beyond what we give you here. So, is that what you're saying? 49ers on offense. So, I did not like the game plan that Kyle Shanahan enacted against the Cowboys. I felt they weren't using the varied rushing approaches that they are so good at. I felt that it was a very vanilla run scheme. I felt that they didn't utilize Dallas's aggressiveness against them by running plays that were bouncing outside, counter plays, more jet motion. I just felt that Shanahan, it was the poorly coached game, but give him credit. It was the sideline reporter apparently had talked to him and said they got to fix their blocking, and they did after halftime. The blocking was better, the play calling was a little more diverse, and they had success in the running game. Now, injuries, we do have to be a little bit concerned. Christian McCaffrey did have some type of an apparatus on his calf. They thought it might have been stimulation, ice. So there's something up with that calf, and he was seeing his snaps limited. And Elijah Mitchell picked up a groin injury. Imagine that. Elijah Mitchell hurt. He missed Wednesday's practice. Now, we don't know if it's maintenance, but it's not a good sign that Mitchell missed practice. Now, hopefully that turns around on Thursday. Again, McCaffrey, I fully expect him to play. But look, if it's a calf injury, those are one things. If it flares up and your calf isn't firing, that could be extremely problematic. So it's something to keep an eye on throughout the practice report this week. Again, catch us in the weekend and on Saturday gambling. So if there's any update on that, that'll be 11:30 a.m. Eastern, where you're watching right now. But one won't be on Instagram. It'll be on YouTube, Twitter, or RotoWire. And anyways, we talked back with the 49ers. So what are they going to do this week? My expectation is they're going to focus on that heavy personnel. We see Kyle Juszczyk on the field a lot. They're going to need to deploy him in his multifaceted role, primarily blocking, moving him around, just sometimes occasionally seeing a target, and that might be smart to utilize him in that capacity just to kind of keep the defense off. But I really think the pre-snap motion, they've got to turn that dial up this week. They've got to just present some looks to make the Eagles put the Eagles on their heels defensively. You don't want the Eagles aggressively coming downhill at you. They're a very, very talented defense. The other thing is the outside corners, Slay and Bradbury, are outstanding. The 49ers have the personnel and the scheme to be able to attack the middle of the field. That is the weaker area. You can attack these safeties. Avonte Maddox had a toe injury. He's missed a few weeks. He practiced limited on Wednesday. My guess is he's not 100%. We're not sure we're going to see him, but we can attack him a bit as well. So I do think the middle of the field will be the place to get after them in the pass game. And that's where George Kittle will go a lot. We occasionally could see them utilize Brandon Ayuk on some underneath routes. They haven't done that a lot this year, but it has been in their bag of tricks as of his rookie year. So it is in that bag of tricks. But again, attacking those safeties, quick passing when they're going to pass. You don't want the corners. They play a lot of zone. And so that helps you too, because you can manipulate voids in the zone. And really going to the Eagles side, they're going to want to stick with that zone. This is a game where you don't want to go man. Brock Purdy isn't throwing the ball 35, 40 times. Brandon Ayuk is their best receiver. But regardless, Jawan Jennings isn't a player that's going to consistently pose them a threat. And so you keep your corners in your zone. You utilize the other bodies to try to attack what the 49ers want to do in the run game and in the middle of the field. So you try to compensate there. So I think they're going to be fine in their zone. And we know that they're going to want to get the 49ers in difficult down and distance situations, because this is the team that has the most sacks in the season in NFL history. And they have 4 elite pass rushers in their front 7. So 49ers do have an excellent blocking offensive line. It's going to be the chess match on early downs. That's what's really going to point this out. Now, when we look at Brock Purdy in this game, we've seen blemishes over the last. He's a 7th-round rookie, right? And we've seen blemishes. We've seen him throw the ball behind receivers. We've seen him make mistakes that he really hasn't had to pay for. He's thrown balls that could have been intercepted over the last couple of weeks, and he's gotten away with them. So he really is playing on, a bit of fortune right now. And the defenses are just getting tough. Seattle was not a great defense at all. Dallas was a good defense who had their moments, and they played great. And the Eagles are even better. So the bar keeps going up as we go through this NFC. So Kyle Shanahan has to realize what Purdy has been. He realized the mistakes have been sitting under the surface, and he needs to minimize his quarterback here. And again, back to the game plan I said, I think play action Kittle over the middle, some screens, get Debo in the running game. There are ways to minimize Purdy, and they need to do that. If they get into a game where they're going to shoot out, which I don't project, but if that happens, that's a big negative for the 49ers, because if that pass rush starts predictably having to be able to get home on Purdy, that's going to be a recipe for disaster. So the 49ers need to keep this game close or lower scoring, or play with the lead. But those are going to be kind of prerequisites for them to have an opportunity. Remember, like I said, not only the Eagles have the most sacks ever, but they are the number 1 in pressure rate. And those all don't always wash. Sometimes you have a team that just gets a lot of sacks and they don't get consistent pressure. This team gets consistent pressure. So Purdy, to me, is not an upside play. Certainly in attacking the middle of the field, there could be that opportunity where Kittle breaks one. But I 1 touchdown we're looking at here, in my opinion. I don't think we're looking at more than 220 yards here. And it's funny, if I did my projections, and when the props came out, they were the same. It was like 220.5 for the prop. I had 220. So it was like a half a yard difference, which you don't throw for half a yard. It's the over number. So we had it the same. And so also against this particular defense, I don't know that Purdy is going to be able to run on. They play that zone. They have enough activity at linebacker where I think it's not going to be something he's going to be able to do a lot of. And I think they're really going to try to get the ball out quickly when they can. Now, McCaffrey, we said earlier, the calf, we're not sure what we're getting. McCaffrey, it's been weird since he came to San Francisco, right? He's had 4 really tough matchups, and he's had 6 super easy ones. Now, in the 4 tougher matchups, Dallas, 10 for 35 and a touchdown. Now, he caught 6 passes, but 22 yards. Washington, 15 carries for 46 yards and 2 catches for 12. Now, the Tampa Bay game was interesting. He did well, but I believe they were without Vita Vea, but this was a former divisional opponent from when McCaffrey was in Carolina. So the familiarity there may have helped him. He went 14 for $119. He did really well against him. But then we go back to New Orleans. And New Orleans, we said all year, they were a good run defense, but they weren't the shutdown run defense they've been in years past. He was 11 for 32 against them. So when we're looking at these games against Dallas, Washington, New Orleans, it's about 3 yards per carry. It has not been pretty. And even against Seattle, he broke through late, but they were stuffing him a bit. So this is a middling matchup. Philly is we had that middle of the season low where we thought they were a bad run defense, but they shored it up. They got Jordan Davis back from injury. They were able to bring in Linval Joseph and Ndamukong Suh as rotational pieces. Just that rotation really helps, keeps the bigger guys fresh, allows them to be more effective when they're on the field. So this is a middling matchup, and the way McCaffrey has really not acclimated as a runner in this situation, I'm not encouraged for him to have a big game on the ground here. I thought against Dallas it would happen, and that one was a bad beat on the, not a bad beat, it was just a terrible call on the prop. Let's call it what it was. Not a good call. I just didn't foresee that coming. I thought that they would be able to run it down Dallas's throats. Certainly not the case. Again, McCaffrey will be involved in the passing game. He's getting targets. Now, he could easily catch 4 or 5 passes, but the yardage has really been hit or miss. So I am not really super excited on McCaffrey here, other than if he can make that big play down the stretch. But I don't think it's going to be a consistent big game for him. Deebo Samuel may be a part of this game, and we'll get to him in a little bit. Again, with Elijah Mitchell, concerned about the injury with the groin. We're not quite sure if he's going to be able to suit this one up, and that could be problematic. I guess with Doug not anymore, I can take these headphones. I really don't need them right now. And but Mitchell, he had the bad game against Seattle where he went 9 carries for 2 yards, but he did haul in a couple passes for a touchdown. But divisional round game against Dallas, he brought it in the second half, 14 carries, 51 yards. Now, we don't like where he didn't go out of bounds. He went out of bounds instead of, he could have ended the game. Fortunately, it didn't come up to haunt him. But Mitchell's been if he's healthy, he's been very good in that change of pace role. And we talk about this a lot in that change of pace role. You definitely, the defense doesn't do well with the changeup. They're used to playing the rhythm that the lead back brings. Now, in terms of the receivers here, Deebo Samuel gets like his 7 to 10 touches a game. And I'm going to look at some numbers here. He has at least 4 receptions in 5 of his last 8 games, and he's between 42 and 58 yards in 6 of his last 9. So he's been pretty much mostly a middling performer. Now, he did have that massive game against Seattle, capped by that long touchdown with the great blocking where he caught the ball and got up the sideline. So that was an outstanding play there. But he has not been a high ceiling player, but he's still going to need to be involved, and he's going to be a linchpin in this offense. He can, especially if they get him past on the Darius Slay side of the field. I think his physicality can get him to break some tackles and to do some damage effort. Bradbury's a bigger dude. It'd be a little tougher to go that way. But again, Deebo's going to be used in space. A lot of drag routes, I'm hoping here. Some toss sweeps, some runs. They're going to have to get him utilized in dimensional capacities. But again, there haven't been many upside games. And so again, I'm thinking that we're not looking for that massive game because he just hasn't had it. And it's a really rough defense he's up against here with that zone. That's going to also help them because within the zone, they're going to be able to pass off when he's moving in to different areas of the zone through his routes. So again, I think it's a solid floor game, but I don't know that he goes off here. It's really George Kittle who I think will be the linchpin here. As I mentioned earlier, it's the middle of the field where you can attack. When Kittle is lined up as a blocker, defenses don't typically commit extra bodies on him, and they can release him out, and he could be very dangerous, especially off play action. He can get downfield very quickly and beat the seams here. And overall, so when we look at the overall season numbers on the Eagles, they've been good against tight ends, but I'll tell you some of the production they've given up. They've given up at least 40 yards to Juwan Johnson, Dalton Schultz, Chig Okonkwo, and Pat Freiermuth. So they're middling in fantasy points allowed, but they haven't had an oppressive schedule of tight ends faced. And so this is a game in which Kittle should absolutely be able to outclass those safeties. And even the linebackers in coverage, being Kittle's elite nature, I'm not overwhelmed and worried because the outside linebackers can cover. I just don't think they're to Kittle's level. So I think Kittle's going to be in decent shape here. He will be a linchpin to the offense here. I do project him as an over. His prop is like 44 yards. I have him going for 75 and a score in this one. I think he's going to definitely put in the touchdown in this one because, again, that's where we attack them. But overall on offense, this is not going to be a show of force by the 49ers offense. They are on the road. They're playing an elite defense. We're going to need McCaffrey to step up. But again, with the cap, we don't know that. So overall, I think they're going to have to grind it out. They're gonna be a number of punts in this game, more than we'd like to see in a championship game. But they're gonna have to lean on their defense and take advantage of their scoring opportunities here. Now, on the other side of the ball, the Eagles. Offensively, here's how I anticipate they will approach the 49ers. So we know the main weakness of the 49ers is you can attack them with the receivers on the perimeter. This couldn't work better for the Eagles because the Eagles have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, and that works really, really well. Now, the 49ers haven't been the lights-out group against tight ends that we've seen in the past, but they are more than able to deal with Dallas Goedert. We'll talk about him specifically later. It's the run game that they really shut down. Now, the Eagles have an elite offensive line, both in pass blocking and in run blocking, so they definitely have opportunities to do well here. But Philadelphia is one of the few teams in the league, when they know there's a weakness on the opposing defense, they are able to attack that. And they could say, you know what, you can't stop the run, then we run the ball down your throats. Miles Sanders had 3 games with, I want to say, at least 130 yards and 2 touchdowns. When you had those matchups, you took advantage of them. Last week against the Giants, spammed them with the run. Can't stop it. Well, they've had other games. I remember the Pittsburgh game way back earlier in the season, and we said, well, Pittsburgh's great against the run, but their corner's not so hot. And sure enough, they came out, and A.J. Brown went off for 3 touchdowns. Did not surprise me at all. This is that similar matchup. I'm not saying the Steelers and the 49ers are the same defense, but what I'm saying is, though, in terms of attacking them, this is what you have to do. And the 49ers have a great pass rush, but the Eagles are able potentially to hold up. So I do wonder, Lane Johnson is playing with an injury, and last week he got away with it. But I wonder if Nick Bosa is on his side. If that injury limits him at all, that could end up being a problem if they continue to pressure him with Bosa. I'm not sure if it'd be a deal, but I think there could be something there. The interior line, if you're going to attack anybody, it'll be Landon Dickerson, but he's been good in pass pro, a little worse against the run. So there really aren't weak links here. So that'll be interesting. Anyway, the Eagles want to attack with the wide receivers on the outside. That is our best path here. And I think they could continue to go to that. And if the 49ers were to make some adjustments, which I don't think they will do, it doesn't seem their nature defensively, then the Eagles would go to a backup play. So if you overplay the pass, then they'll run on you. They will take what you give them. I don't see the 49ers doing that. So anyway, the 49ers defense, how do they approach this? Well, first thing is, they have to find a way, and it's not going to be easy, to get quick pressure on Jalen Hurts. Mentioned earlier, the great offensive line of the Eagles. It's easier said than done. They're going to have to be creative with the stunts, pass rush concepts, overloading sides, and then they've got to worry about the Eagles having so many varied weapons. Now, I don't think this is necessarily a big running game for Jalen Hurts. The speed of the linebackers for the 49ers definitely comes into play here. That is where I'd be concerned. Jalen Hurts, not a big ground game, because if the 49ers use those overloaded sides to get pressure, then the answer would be Hurts running away. But those linebackers, I think, mitigate a lot of that. So they're going to be able to take away some of that explosive element, most likely, of the Eagles' offense. Not that Jalen Hurts can't break a long run. He's a superior runner. That certainly could happen. If there's a breakdown, we could see that. If there's a good play designed run where he's able to capitalize on that. So there's that as well. So we have also the 49ers. Here's what they're probably going to do. I think they're going to have to go with Charvarius Ward on A.J. Brown. It's not going to be a win-win, but Charvarius Ward deals with physical receivers well. He's done reasonably well in the regular season game. He did reasonably well against DK Metcalf. Not so reasonably well in the playoff game where DK Metcalf went off. And I think that's what we're looking at. Ward could have that big game. All right, Eddie. So he could have that big game. But I think ultimately A.J. Brown being the elite superstar, Charvarius Ward is going to struggle with A.J. Brown, because it's one thing. DK Metcalf is obviously a star player too, but A.J. Brown is that elite level receiver. It's just a step up in class. And if Ward is left on an island with him, then I do think Brown will have the win here. Now, on the other side, I think the 49ers, what they'll do is I don't think Diamador Lenoir can at all hang with Devontae Smith. So I think they're going to have to just shade help his way. I think they know that the pass-heavy approach is likely coming here. So they just really have to bracket, and they have to deal with Devontae Smith that way and then take their chances with Ward. Devontae Smith is still going to get some catches, but I think they could limit his yardage by doing a bracket system on him and then just hoping their linebackers can handle Goddard. I think that's the game plan both ways. So in terms of the individual players, is Jalen Hurts still hurt? He apparently said before the last game, I'm not close to 100%. Was that deep shot he missed on A.J. Brown just like missing a long pass? That happens all the time. Or was it injury? We don't know. And if Jalen Hurts is not 100% with that shoulder, this isn't a good week to test it out. But they're going to need him in this game. And so it's going to be, we're attacking with the receivers. I don't see Miles Sanders getting a lot of carries. We'll talk about him in a minute. But Jalen Hurts, I do think because of those receivers' edge, I do think he throws for 250 in this game. I think he throws for a single touchdown, though. I do think he runs for only 30 yards, but I think he runs one as well. So he accounts for a couple of touchdowns here. But again, I do think they're going to bracket a bit on Devontae Smith and limit him. A.J. Brown will get some damage. I think he has the bigger game of the two for certain here. He didn't last week, and obviously they missed him on the long touchdown. They ran all day. They didn't have to throw a lot, so we kind of throw that out. But so that's kind of how I'm looking at this matchup here. But I do think Hurts gets contained a bit as a runner. Now, I talked about A.J. Brown. And I already mentioned how I felt that they will probably have Charvarius Ward on him. I believe they've got to use some double moves from A.J. Brown. They've got to use some strategic play action with design shots at him. And in the Jalen Hurts, again, hoping the shoulder's fine, has been very good in the deep ball this year. And look, A.J. Brown will track it down. He'll physical you through the contact. So he'll be in good shape here. I project A.J. Brown, though, 85 yards and a touchdown. I don't know that he's going over 100 here. Don't be surprised if he does. Our projections are always a little on the conservative side. We don't really project the big game. If he's coming, we make a note to say he has real upside, which he does have real upside. He can get over the top multiple times and make plays happen here. But otherwise, I'm putting him for 85 and a touchdown. Now, as I said earlier with Devontae Smith, I do think he gets the 7 catches, but because I think, again, there's going to be help given to the corner, because I think they're going to trust Ward to do his best on Brown. We're looking at like 65 yards on 7 catches. Devontae Smith, great route runner. I just don't think he has much room as usual. And I do think the 49ers will find a way, especially when obvious passing downs, to get some pressure despite that great offensive line of the Eagles. And the Cowboys were causing them a bit of an issue at times. And believe me, obviously we're studying the tape on that, right? And so, and the Eagles are. So I do think they are going to have a little bit of success with that. So again, tempered yardage. I don't see shootout going here. Dallas Goedert, look, facing those linebackers is a tough draw. Dallas Goedert's an elite tight end, very good route runner, very physical at the catch point. So I do think he will get a moderate game. I see him 4 catches for 47 yards in this one, but I don't think he's going to be consistently open. I don't think there are going to be plays where they're going to be able to just scheme him up and say, we've got to win here. I think it's going to be a battle for him in this game. And they may actually need him to block a little more than usual too, especially if the 49ers are getting some of that pass rush going here. And then, so overall, Miles Sanders here. So Miles Sanders, he's cleaned up against bad defense when he's been used. Against the better defenses, he isn't always used a lot. Like I said earlier, the Eagles can choose how they're going to attack you. Now, going into that big 90-yard game he had, unlimited carries against the Giants, he was 55 carries for 201 yards in his last 4 regular season games. That was well less than 4 yards per carry. So 4 yards would be at 220, so less than 4 yards per carry behind that great line. And I do think this is going to be a bit of a struggle for him. And I actually gave him, I don't think he gets a lot of rushing attempts because the Eagles, again, if they're not going to bang their head against the wall, and they don't have to, they're too smart and well coached. So I gave him a very generous projection of 13 carries for 53 yards. I'm more inclined to say he goes 45. Now, No running back this year is at 70 yards against the 49ers. It's not starting here, I wouldn't think. And even though Kenny Gainwell had the great game in the divisional round, look, game was out of hand. Giants can't stop the run. It was just one of those great opportunities. I don't see much for Kenny Gainwell. I'm giving him a couple carries, a couple catches, combined yards, probably less than 20. And Boston Scott will get a couple of touches. But again, I don't think they're going to use their running backs heavily here because that would not be the optimal game plan. On this game, my prediction. So I still am going to go in my opinion is going to be that Hurts isn't quite 100%. We won't see the very, very best of it. We'll see a good version, though. And I do think the Eagles receivers will win enough to have some success on offense. I mentioned earlier, don't see much from the Eagles running game. 49ers, I am worried, as I said, because of last week's game plan, but it probably was a wake-up call for Kyle Shanahan. And I do think Shanahan will dial up the A game with complicated run concepts, with good play-action shots to Kittle, utilizing Debo in a very weaponized manner as a runner and a receiver. And here's the thing. If they get in bad down and distance situations, the game could get ugly. And this is going to sound like a hedge, but it really isn't. I do believe that they're breaking this game down, looking at both sides of the fence. Hurts, again, assuming he's not quite 100%, I do think if they play 10 times, they'd each win 5. I really feel that strongly about this one. I am going against my better judgment. I'm going to pick the 49ers 23-21 in this game. I think ultimately, if Shanahan has the answers offensively to attack the middle of that defense, I think that Jalen Hurts, if they have to lean on him and that pass rush gets home, I think we could see mistakes. I think he could make a couple of critical mistakes when pressure comes on plays that earlier in the season against lesser pass rushes, he would be able to make some noise downfield. So the over and under on this game is 45.5, and I am a very slight lean to the under. The way this is going, I would almost lay off the over and under on it because I do have it like so close to that. The 49ers are getting 2.5 points here. So certainly I would go that route. I don't know that I would jump the money line for sure. But again, if I'm picking in the win, there's a lot more value in the money line than there's the 2.5. But that at least gives the margin where if they lose on, a point or two, then they could actually cover that line as well. So, but again, it really is a toss-up. And if you feel strongly either way about these teams, again, if they play 10 times, I think they each win 5, and I have to pick a winner, and that's the route I go. All right, Bengals at the Chiefs. This is the third meeting between them it's a fourth meeting between them in the last 2 years. Burrow has won all 3 of them. In all 3 of those games in the second half, Bengals trailed, and the Bengals came back, and the Bengals won, and they slowed down the Chiefs in the second half. So, wow, we are in for something here. Now, look, we have to start out. I mean, we'll talk about the Chiefs first. Maybe we won't. Let's talk about the last meeting. I got a couple notes here. I'm just going to glance and tell you my recap of what happened. So, in Week 13, the Bengals win this one 27-24. They had to score 10. They shut out 10-0 in the fourth quarter to pull out the win. They were up 14-10 at the half. And then Kansas City had a hot third quarter, 14-3, and they got the lead. And again, but Cincinnati closes them out. Lou Anarumo causes a lot of problems for Patrick Mahomes late, as he's done in the last couple games. The offense did enough to score the points and win. Now, want to point out a few things about this game. Week 13 this was. Kelsey didn't get his first reception until the first drive of the second half. That was an oddity. Cincinnati didn't pressure Mahomes because that's the book. You don't pressure him. And they dropped their coverage. They've had success with that as back to the AFC Championship last year. They had success with that in this game. Now, what the Chiefs did was, often when the coverage was dropped, Isaiah Pacheco, I keep saying this, his downhill aggressive running style is a very good fit against light boxes. And so Pacheco had a lot of success running downhill against light boxes. So they were very wise in how they used him. Now, Kansas City, they had a 4th down, and it was like 3 or 4 inside the 4-yard line, and Mahomes ran in on a 4th down. That worked out to their advantage. Now, Kelsey, when they were over the 50-yard line in that fourth quarter, he had a ball stripped away from him, and that loss of possession potentially influenced the outcome of that game. I also want to point out, not a short field goal, but Harrison Butker did miss a 55-yarder with 3 minutes left in the game. That would have tied it. And then the Bengals were able to kill the clock after that. So there were a few things. Now, on the other side, it went both ways here, okay? First thing was the Bengals had a 3rd and 1 inside the Chiefs' 5-yard line, and they turned it over on downs, just like a minute left or less in the first half. It was a bad second with 4. It was a bad play call. Some like toss to Trent Irwin. Horrible play call. You get your playmakers the ball. You don't get Trent Irwin. Don't get cute. But they blew that one. T. Higgins would have had a touchdown. He couldn't get his feet in. And then there was an illegal man downfield penalty, so they had to settle for a field goal on that one. And so there were opportunities where they lost points as well. And also there was a red zone play where the Chiefs went with 1 safety high instead of 2, where they usually do it with Jamar Chase. Burrow immediately attacked it, hit Tyler Boyd, what was should have been a touchdown. Boyd drops the ball. They lead to a field goal. So both teams lost out on points, but honestly, the Bengals lost out on way more points. The Bengals could have blown them out in that game. So both teams had opportunities, but the Bengals blew more opportunities. All right. So again, so the Chiefs did play a lot of too high as expected to limit Chase, and they pretty much did. All right, let's look at this game individually now. So the anticipated game plan. I'm going to start with Cincinnati. Cincinnati on offense. Joe Burrow has been getting the ball out in like 2.5 seconds for the last month or so. The offensive line's decimated. We all know that. But doesn't matter. When you're getting the ball out in 2.5 seconds, does not matter. Pass rush is not getting home that fast. And the problem is, what are defenses going to do? You got Chase, you got Higgins, you got Boyd, you got Hayden Hurst, you got running backs that can catch the ball in the screen game. So the array of weapons they have, defenses are not able to do much to slow them down. And so the Chiefs are going to be in a pickle here because they obviously are not a shutdown defense. They have a great coach, Steve Spagnuolo, who comes up with a lot of great concepts. But remember, this is their 4th meeting in really since week 17 of last year. So, I mean, these are like real recent meetings. So at some point, Spagnuolo has probably shown them most everything that he's got for them. And what does he come up with new? The Bengals have seen it. Joe Burrow is like a genius processor before the snap, and he knows what he's getting. So this is going to be very interesting because he does have a tactical advantage here, I do believe. So anyway, they're going to keep getting the ball quickly. When the outside receivers, Chase and Higgins, are overplayed, he's going to have Boyd and Hurst. Or he's got the screen, as I said. So Burrow also, this is a defense that gives up a lot of running yards to quarterback. So Burrow, and we've seen this year, he'll take off and run at an optimal time, almost look Mahomesian, right? And so anyway, they're going to trust Burrow to make those reads because that's what he's been and that's who he is. Now, Kansas City, not easy to deal with Burrow getting it out quickly. They probably decide to pull a Cincinnati on them. Drop players in coverage, encourage them to run. They may get beat with the run game, but they become longer drives, and then you might get a holding call, you might get a mistake, and all of a sudden maybe that works to your advantage. I don't think they have any other choice. You could bring the blitz, but if you're getting the ball in 2.5 seconds, it doesn't matter. And if you send a body that's supposed to be on a receiver, Burrow's probably gonna have the hot read called. So I'm really concerned, unless Chris Jones comes up with something legendary here on the inside rushing. I'm very concerned for the Chiefs defense here. Their numbers in the season were great, but this is not any team. This is a Bengals offense that can beat adequate defenses. All right, Burrow himself. So week 13. Oh, he got the not so silent majority here. No, you're never too late. I just started breaking down the second game. I'm breaking down Cincinnati and Kansas City, but you can always catch it. This show you can catch on RotoWire, YouTube, so you can catch it from the beginning at any point in time when it's done. So go back and catch that first game. So Burrow in week 13, 25 of 31 passing, 6 incomplete passes. And we said earlier, there was like a Tyler Boyd drop of a wide open touchdown. So it wasn't like the incompletions. Like this dude was almost perfect. Throws for 286, couple touchdowns. He 46 on the ground. He runs one in. So Burrow was just like clicking. And again, I just don't see anything differently here. And if Kansas City drops bodies, they're going to lean into the run. So that's where the downside for Burrow's stat line goes. But in terms of productivity, I just expect them to have quite a bit of success. Now, in that Week 17 game last year, Burrow threw for 446 and 4 touchdowns. But that was the first time I saw Jamar Chase. Chase burned him up, and then they've obviously made the adjustment since that last year playoff game. Burrow only threw for 250 and 2 touchdowns, and he did run for 25. So we've seen they've made that adjustment since that first time they played in Week 17 last year. And those adjustments most teams make when they've seen the Bengals and Jamar Chase firsthand. So it's nothing abnormal or very, very normal. So I do, like I said, Burrow should have your nice solid game. I do have him a little over his prop. His prop is 273. I got him at 285 in this game. Now, remember, if you're betting this, be careful, because if the Chiefs drop too many people, I do think they won't have an issue. Last week they showed us, and I was stunned, and we got the prop wrong on T. Higgins because there was no scenario. Remember, we said last week, Mixon and Pirine were less than 2.5 yards per carry in the prior month, and they, with backup linemen primarily, ran the ball down the Bills' throats relentlessly. And knowing the Chiefs have to drop bodies, they may be able to do that again. So I would personally, I have the projection of Burrow at 285, but I am going to lay off that prop because I just see too many scenarios. If they run the ball, it's problematic. So that said, he has a good game, but I think they're balanced because that's what Kansas City's going to give them, and they're smart enough to take it. So the next, and they're stick with the receivers right now. So Jamar Chase, and we've seen it. And look, are there many better? No, but defense have done a really nice job of limiting him. Remember, the only 230-yard games he had this year, and each of them were 2 touchdowns, were against the NFC South teams. He's burned teams that don't know him, but the teams that see him, they tend to they give him production, but they just not these big blow-up games. So remember, Week 17 last year, he had 266 and 3 touchdowns. That was fantasy championship week. My friend Dave Richard, he was against me in the Kings Classic. He scores 56 with Chase. I got lucky. Pulled the game out. We don't need to talk about my fantasy team. Nobody cares. All right. So, but anyway, after that 266 and 3 in the AFC Championship game the same year, 6 for 54 and a touchdown. And the last time they met, oh man, I don't have it in my notes. Oh, I do. 7 for 97 on 8 targets. So I think we're looking at that's a Chase game now. The Chase games are he's going to get his 6 to 9 catches. He's going to get his 80 to 115 yards. That's what we're looking at. There's always a chance for him to score. It's just that teams are not giving him that over the top, and that will continue here. Can he break a play? Of course, he's Jamar Chase, but reliably, we can't predict that because defenses have been very cognizant of how to handle him. So he has that massive floor game, but he doesn't really have the ridiculous ceiling, which is fine. Now, I projected him out 8 catches, 90 yards, and a touchdown. His prop is 84.5. And again, these all move. But you may check your book, and it might be a couple yards. But again, I'm within 5 yards. So am I betting that? No, I'm not betting a prop that I have 6 yards within because it's just very, very difficult. It's a razor-thin margin. And Not So Silent Majority asked the question I'm coming up with next. T. Higgins. So in the Week 13 game, Higgins had 5 targets, 3 for 35 and a touchdown. Now, however, remember, I said earlier, in that game, he did have a play where Burrow throws it in the left corner of the end zone, and it would have been a touchdown. He couldn't get a second foot in, but then they had an illegal man downfield, so it would have been wiped out anyway. So he did have red zone opportunity against them. But, Higgins has had 35 or fewer yards in 3 of his last 4 full games. Now, in the AFC Championship game last playoffs after the wild card game, he rolled. He had at least 96 yards, in the last 3 playoff games. He went for 100 against the Chiefs, 6 catches, 103. But, it's been interesting. The only time this year he's been targeted 10 or more times were Week 2 and Week 11. We frequently last year would see him have those double-digit target games. the targets are just sailing the Chase. Chase is like getting 10 to 14 targets a game, and they really are almost. And look, they're to me they're both alpha receivers, and I just almost think that Chase gets less coverage, and I almost think that they're almost not getting him enough targets. I mean, do you ignore Jamar Chase? No, of course you don't. But I still think that he's not getting enough, and I don't think he's getting into the rhythm of games. Now, he does tend to score. He's a good red zone target with the size. Exactly. Not so silent majority is bringing that up. Yeah, he's like the jump ball guy in the red zone. Right. Because A, he can win the physicality battle. B, he can go up and get it. And he's also very good on the sidelines when you throw him the shoulder fade. He's really good at all those. So I project him to score in this game, but I can't project the yardage. I have 5 for 57, and it just those are the ranges he's falling in. He hasn't been having many of those big big T Higgins games, and it's frustrating because he's an amazing player, and I just again they're winning. How do you argue, right? They're winning like every week, but would like to see Higgins more involved with Chase because I think that makes him more dangerous. But who's to argue? So I don't think he has the big game. Love to see it. Don't see it happening though. Tyler Boyd, he's had 2 boom games this year. 2 games over 66 yards. One was against Atlanta, again, NFC South one. And he did have in week 3, he had 4 catches for like 100 couple of yards against the Jets. So that there was that. But he has been over 40 yards in 4 of his last 8 games. So he's having a floor. He's just not having any big games. He's only been held below 33 yards 3 times all year. So you pretty much pencil him in for that 35 to 45 yard game is pretty standard. But there just really isn't any reasonable reason to see in the matchup that there's going to be a Tyler Boyd game. Again, he did drop a 15-yard touchdown, I think it was maybe so, in that week 13 matchup. So there was that. He did have a chance to score. I do project him 4 catches for 37 yards. But again, if the more the defense puts extra attention on the outside, there is always that opportunity that Boyd gets a play down the middle. So I do think he has upside. His prop is 32.5 yards, and I know I'm only 4 yards over that. But I think I think that specific projection is a conservative projection. So in this case with 4.5 yards, I would put a small bet on him to go over that prop. Because again, I do think there's extra opportunity because the defense is going to put a little extra tension on Chase and Higgins with the magnitude of the game. So I see that. Now, Hayden Hurst is a tough one to predict. The Kansas City, they're middling against tight ends. They'll give up production. Cody Parkinson, 3 for 45. Greg Dulcich, 3 for 42. Kittle had a big game, 6 for 98. They held down Evan Ingram, 3 for 14. And then last week in the playoff game, he didn't do much at all. Hayden Hurst himself had 2 catches for 12 yards. I do think that there's going to be openings in the middle of the field. I just don't know how much they're going to lean on him here. Now, that said, we said earlier, depends how much attention they want to put on Chase and Higgins. I am projecting him for 3 catches for 28 yards. I just don't see a path where he's going to see a ton of targets. I don't think with Burrow getting the ball out so quickly, I don't think this is going to be one of these things where we're throwing it to Hurst because the pass rush is getting home and he's my hot read in the middle. I think he's getting it out so quickly. And honestly, I do expect the Chiefs just to drop bodies. And that you're going to make them be more conservative. So I do think it's a lesser game. Now, the run game. So we already said it. We said it earlier. We know the line is playing with subs, but against the Bills, that run mentality. And I've heard other analysts talk about this week, and I agree with them. You might not be a great offensive lineman, but run blocking is completely different than pass blocking. If they're just telling you to go downhill and just mash, they were doing that against Buffalo. And they could do that in this game against Kansas City. They could do that. And if Kansas City is dropping 8 to make Burrow give him less windows to throw, then they're going to lean in Joe Mixon. Last week, I said Samaje Perine played more snaps. He didn't play a great deal of snaps. It wasn't any great shakes. He played 44%, though, which is better than what he had been playing because I thought they would need him in pass protection a little bit more. But you know what? I don't know. We have Chris Jones. I don't think they're going to see this as a game where they're going to have to lean on the screen and the pass protection. I think Joe Mixon is going to come in and have plenty of opportunity. Now, remember, he only had 11 to 16 carries in his last 4 games. Now, last week in the playoff game, he changed that equation. He had 20 carries in last week's playoff game for 105 yards, and they played with a lead. Now, as I'll break this down, I do think the Bengals have a great chance to play with the lead here. And I do think Mixon is going to have another effective game. His rushing yard prop is 56.5. I have him at 85 yards. I have him as a very comfortable over. I do think he gets 18 carries in this game because they're going to, I think, play with the lead. Usually when they play the Chiefs, they're chasing in the second half. I don't think they're going to chase here. And so Samaje Perine, I think on the other hand, because if they're not trailing, I don't think they're going to need him as a pass protector as much. I don't think there's many obvious passing situations. So I think he's more lightly used in this game. And so I project him 2 carries for 11 yards, 3 catches for 17. But this is indicative of his numbers the last few weeks of the regular season. That was how the usage was kind of going. Mixon was playing nearly 60 snaps a game in the last 4, and Perine had been kind of phased down a bit. He had that hot run earlier. And I think that we're going to go back to seeing that here. So I am in on Joe Mixon. I love his over prop. And by the way, if you're not following me on Twitter, at Jim Coventry NFL, I did 4 good props, and I gave you a complete breakdown of the whys. Don't bet it if you don't like them, but read through them and at least see if it goes along with your thinking. And if you agree with it, then you bet it, right? All right, so let's move to the Chiefs side of the ball. It's Patrick Mahomes, right? So, look, it was amazing courage and amazing production that he played on that high ankle sprain and was able to continue and hold the victory against the Jaguars. But look, and I know he practiced Wednesday. Oh, thank you, Not So Silent Majority. Appreciate that. Yeah, I love doing those threads. I also do threads on these games themselves other than props. But yes, those are up. The props are up already because I want you to get those bets in before the numbers go up because some of these numbers are going to pop way up. So get the value on them while you can, right? So, all right. So that swelling has to go up after the injury. The day after, it's always going to be worse. Now, all right, fine. They're going to wrap it up. Fine, you're going to give him a pain-killing injection. But it's a high ankle sprain. He barely could hand the ball off in that game. He couldn't plant his foot. So, to me, he will be lucky to play this game at 60%. And I get it. He's Patrick Mahomes. Okay, 60% Patrick Mahomes. I get it. Look, he's not going to be able to roll out and buy 5 seconds. He's not going to be able, when the defense drops bodies, to say, oh, there's an opening. I'm going to take off for 15, 20 yards. That ain't happening. Not happening. I mean, hey, I believed in Santa Claus. I believed in the Easter Bunny when I was a kid. Patrick Mahomes is not going to be running all over the field, buying 10 minutes of time and picking the side where he's going to throw the ball and then putting drive on it. That ain't happening. And the Bengals have been very good against Mahomes. In week 13, fully healthy Mahomes, 16 to 27, 223 yards. AFC Championship game last year, 26 to 39, 275 yards. He did 3 touchdowns. Even in that week 17 game last year, 26 to 35, 259. So he's got 223, a 259, and a 275. What do? So in the prop on him is 273. I hammered the under. I'm giving him a really generous projection of 255 yards. I don't think he's getting there. If I was in my rational mind, I'd put 235 yards down. I might even put 215 yards down here. And maybe I'm guilty of falling into this tooth fairy Patrick Mahomes and Santa Claus's ankle is going to be fine. It's not. Hammer the under on it. If he goes over, God bless him. Pulls the miracle off. But he hasn't been good at full health against his defense. And Anarumo, what is he going to do? Well, guess what? I got Patrick Mahomes gimpy. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to flood the middle with pressure. I know the Chiefs have a great line. They do. But you know what? I'm sending bodies up the middle. Because if I send bodies up the middle, guess what Mahomes has to do? You can't step up in the pocket. You got to break contain. But he can't move. And he can't throw on the run. I don't see it. I will give you a path for the Chiefs, though, so hang with me. But Mahomes, not excited about him here. He's not looking good. Now, the receivers. Juju Smith-Schuster, I just do not see this working out in this game. Chiefs are going to drop defenders. They're going to get enough rushers in the middle, and they're going to not play deep because they will not trust that Patrick Mahomes can throw the ball deep. So they are going to compress the defense. Now, that's more bodies in the passing lanes. Mahomes is not going to have these free, easy throws, and there's going to be pressure. Not going to be good. So this does not bode well for Juju Smith-Schuster. He's very good against zones, but when you have extra people in the zones, those windows are not there. I project him 3 catches for 27 yards. We're calling it a day there. His prop is 45.5 yards, pounding the under on that. Do not see it. Not a big run after the catch guy. There won't be much run after the catch space to be had with extra defenders in the secondary. And then Marquez Valdes-Scantling. It's week 13. He had 2 catches for 71 yards. That doesn't even sound right. That does not sound. That doesn't sound right. I have my numbers here. I think I might have screwed that one up. In that last game, I want to say he caught a short touchdown against them. That's what I want to say. He caught a short touchdown. That would be right. Anyway, Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Again, Mahomes is not going to be able to throw deep. Valdes-Scantling is not a precise route runner. I don't see any scenario where he has consistent success. I put him at 2 catches for 13 yards. His prop is 28.5 yards. In the event that Mahomes can get a 20-yard throw off, I probably will fade the bet, even though I have him way under. I'll probably fade this one because I don't like to bet on a guy that can get behind the defense a little bit because one catch and it goes away. So we have that. Not so silent majority of this question. Do you think we see Henne? It's a great question. Mahomes will play as long as the game is in question. He will not come out if they have a chance of winning. I think the only way we see Henne is if there is no chance of winning. Because ultimately, the Bengals are an excellent defense. Henne had the advantage of playing a Jaguars defense that was bad against the pass. Surprised to see him. Good against the run, so what? I know Pacheco broke the long run outside. But, Henne plays if it's out of hand. Mahomes will not walk off that field. He's practiced on Wednesday. I can't answer it definitively, but that's where I stand on that. He would have to re-injure the ankle too. If he re-injures the ankle, then he'd have to come out for that too. So that's another reason to bet the under on Mahomes too, because there's a way non-zero chance that happens too. All right. Mecole Hardman might practice. Again, can't do anything with that. He hasn't played so long. Now, Kadarius Toney. I know he's playing 29% of the snaps, but when he's on the field, he frequently gets the ball. This is a week where he's a gadget guy in a good way. He's more than a gadget guy. He could be a lot more than that. But in this game, they need Kadarius Toney to be the gadget guy. They need to scheme up some plays where they get him on triple stacks on one side, get him a screen with some blockers, and see if he can make some things happen. They need to use him on jet sweeps. They need to use him on other trick play type things. He is the type of player who could make a little something happen in a game where they may not have a lot going on. He is a playmaker, and they need that. So I project him 5 catches for 49 yards. Now, it's a tough one, and his prop is 34.5 yards because, again, if they don't deploy him or they don't up his snaps, which I think they have to up his snaps, but I can't guarantee that. So it's a prop. I have him over, but again, it's too much narrative. So we have to be concerned about that a little bit. Not so silent majority has wondering if I think Mahomes may get re-injured. The whole thing is if somebody crashes on that ankle, there's a good chance whatever he had done to help him. Yeah, well, there's a very good chance that happens. Absolutely. It's a great question. Very good chance it happens. Sky Moore is another player. I know he hasn't done much this year, but they've used him in gadgety type roles. They've used him on jet sweep runs. They've used him on some screens. I think with a week of game planning, Andy Reid knows Patrick Mahomes is going to be right. He is another guy who could be a gadgety type who could do something different. They're going to have to lean into that. And so I think these are the guys they're going to need. If they get some craziness out of Tony, they get some craziness out of Sky Moore, I think these are the types of players, given the situation of the game, who are going to come. And then, of course, there's Travis Kelce. Now, what do you do, right? They ganged up on him last week, and he still got it done. So until otherwise hold, he's getting it done. I can't bet against him. How do I bet against him? I mean, I expect a lot of players in the zone. I expect a lot of attention on him. But he's Travis Kelce. I'm done doubting him. I've doubted him plenty before. Done doubting him. I put his projection at 9 catches for 66 yards. Now, remember, last week he had 14 catches, only 7 yards a catch, because I don't think there's downfield stuff. I don't think there's run after the catch stuff because the amount of defenders that are going to be dropped back. I think he gets his catches. I think he gets some yardage. His prop is 76.5. Again, do I want to bet against him? No, I'm going to fade it. But I am more prone to say he is going under this total because I just think that the Bengals will have some kind of an answer for him. And I do think it's a solid, but it's not a ceiling game here. He can score 3. Well, they're not going to score 3 touchdowns, so I'm not going to say that. But he definitely can score a touchdown. Definitely can score. Because they get in the red zone, there's a million ways to get open. We know that, and we've seen it time and again. So, all right, all that said, and the running backs, forget about them. So, Pacheco looks good, right? And Pacheco's advantage has been this. You have a team when Mahomes is healthy. The defense is terrified of him, right? And so what they do, they drop people. Well, now you have a good offensive line too. They're great at run blocking. And so Isaiah Pacheco is great at just getting the ball, getting downhill, and running hard. That's exactly what that offense needs because when you have defense dropped, gone. Now, this week is a problem. A, Bengals are a good run defense. B, if they drop players, remember I said earlier, I guarantee you they are not worried about Mahomes throwing deep off that ankle. And they'll take a chance. They get beat once, God bless them. They're going to consistently let them do it. They are going to move the defenders up. When they do that, that's going to keep Pacheco from getting second-level runs. First of all, the interior line, defensive line, is going to be very stout against the run. When he gets to the outside, there are going to be bodies crashing on him. Here's the next point. Remember last week's game against the Jaguars. When Mahomes got hurt, who was in the game? Jerick McKinnon. 65% snap share. Why? He's the personal pass protector. Talk about it all the time. Rookie running backs often don't know the nuances of pass blocking. Sometimes certain running backs aren't good pass blockers. Jerick McKinnon was blowing people up. They have to keep their quarterback upright. To do that, they need Jerick McKinnon in the game. I think it's at the cost of Pacheco. And as I said earlier, I tell you why the defense would shut him down. He won't have that normal amount of space that he's used to. So, and Vegas knows it too, because this guy, I'm going to tell you off my notes here, he had gone, what was the yardage? Well, of course, 58 to 107 yards in 8 of his last 9 games. So he's like money for 58 yards, right? Vegas puts his prop at 47.5 yards, way beneath his baseline because they know what's going on. But I'm doubling down further. 8 carries for 28 yards. There's not going to be room to run. And I think that's what Vegas isn't taking in. They're not taking into effect that, yes, they're going to have defenders drop, but they're not going to be deep. They're going to be shallow and in pass defense. They can crash any outside run. So, it's going to be McKinnon in the game. And like last week, McKinnon's going to be doing more blocking than he's doing receiving because with Mahomes and the McKinnon screen game, a lot of those are predicated on Mahomes buying time and then finding McKinnon who's creatively working with him. That's not going to be there. So I am very concerned about that as well. So McKinnon, he'll have a good NFL game, but in terms of McKinnon's production in this game, I have him 6 carries, 17 yards, 4 catches for 25 yards. So again, his props are right in that range, so not fooling with those, but definitely under on the Pacheco yards. All right, here's my final takeaway on this game, my prediction on it. So the Bengals, like I said, they've beaten the Chiefs 3 times in the last 2 years, all by 3 points, right? And it's Burrow who's come up big in the second half of these games. It's not been Mahomes. Lou Anarumo's had his number, right? And Cincinnati defense has limited very good quarterbacks frequently, including Mahomes. Kansas City defense, they've already seen this offense multiple times, and they can't shut them down. They're going to have their success. Said earlier, Burrow's going to get the ball out, and the line isn't going to be a problem because he gets it out in 2.5 seconds. So Mahomes, again, he is going to be nowhere near 100%. I don't see how the Chiefs put up enough points to compete in this very well-coached defense in Cincinnati. I have the Bengals winning 26-16, and the Chiefs might find it difficult to get to those 16 points. So I love under the Chiefs team total. I love the Bengals on the point spread. If they're -1 right now, that goes to -3. Love the Bengals there. Would love to see Kansas City do well. Just don't see it. All right, everybody. Appreciate everyone. Saturday on RotoWire YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. Again, 11:30 a.m. Eastern. I will be on with professional gambler John Ryan. We will be on. We'll break down the betting angles of both of these games. Prop bets, DFS, get you set up for that. Outside of that, I'll be on the Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Channel 87 Saturday from 1 to 3 Eastern with Mario Puig. Sunday, the full 2 hours before the kickoff of the Sunday game, I'll be on with Alan Soslowski. Catch us there. Follow me on Twitter at Jim Coventry NFL. I have a thread up for props. I'll have threads up for the rest of the week. And 2 free days at RotoWire behind the paywall, rotowire.com/try. All right, everybody. Thank you for your time. Appreciate hanging with you. Have a wonderful day, and we will talk soon.